lot of hostages. When you look at all of the problems, they were really a purveyor of terror all over the world for many, many years. And it's something that had to be done. And I believe that if we didn't, because I see where Congress, you know, if I didn't do this, guys like Schumer, who are losers, the Democrats, they're losers. That's why they're not here. Guys like Schumer would say, well, you should have done this. In other words, if I did it, it's no good. If I didn't do it, they would have said the opposite, that you should have done this. But most people feel, I'll tell you what, I have never had more compliments on something I did. People felt it's something that had to be done. So if we have a little high oil prices for a little while, but as soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop, I believe, lower than even before.
Mr. President,
go ahead, please.
Mr. President,
yes.
How do you want to solve the conflict on tariffs between the EU and the US?
Between who?
The conflict on tariffs between the EU and US. How do you want to solve
And US and who?
EU, European Union.
How do you want to
Well,
solve
we won on tariffs, actually. Somebody said you actually won the case. We won on tariffs. We had a decision that was wrong. It was a very bad decision from certain standpoints. From other standpoints, a very powerful decision because it reaffirmed all the fact that we have all these various forms of tariffs that we felt right, but it totally reaffirmed it. It said you can use all of these tariffs. So we have all these vast menus of tariffs. And tariffs have made our country very rich. We have to charge tariffs to nations who play with their money. You know, they move their money up and down like a yo-yo. We have to take care of nations that have been good to us and fair to us, and we're going to take care of them. Other nations, they haven't, and we haven't let them take advantage of us. But the whole thing with tariffs is we had a decision that, like, as an example, we have a license situation, and the license is something that allows us to immediately stop all business with, nobody even knew we had this power, but we do now because of the decision. We have the right to stop all business having to do with a certain country. If a certain country is not treating us well, the president, without going to Congress, has the right to stop. Sort of interesting. I have the right to stop, but under that one law, I didn't have the right to charge them. So I have the right to license them, but I don't have the right to charge, which is frankly ridiculous. But the right was given to us by the Supreme Court. And we have the right, as an example, we talked about Spain. I could tomorrow stop, or today, even better, stop everything having to do with Spain. All business having to do with Spain. I have the right to stop it. Embargoes, do anything I want with it. And we may do that with Spain. What do you think?
Well, sir, I think we're going to talk about it with you. I know that you have strong power. The Supreme Court clarified. We know you can use it, and if you need to use it to assure national and economic security, we'll do it.
Scott, do you have an opinion?
Sir, I agree. The Supreme Court reaffirmed your ability to implement an embargo, and as we've talked, from your first term, the Section 301s and the 232s have withheld more than 4,000 lawsuits, and USTR and Commerce are going to begin investigations, and we'll move forward with those.
And we've instituted a 15% tariff on everybody, as you know, and just used, I'll tell you, we had a couple of paragraphs written in that opinion that were really incredible. Justice Kavanaugh wrote a fantastic dissent, but in his dissent, he said what we should do, and we knew that too. We just wanted to simplify it, and for some reason, I think, you know, very, very foolishly, the courts decided no, but they said you can do it many other ways, and that's what we're doing. And what we've done is we've gone to a very simple, straight 15% tariff. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars in our country because of tariffs. So we've taken in all of this money, hundreds of billions of dollars, and honestly, it's made us very rich as a country. All right, so it's been doing good. When will you have the full plan implemented? We have a 5-month period, up to 5 months, where we can go at 15%. And while we're doing that, as you know, we're doing the various studies and things, and we'll be coming out with tariffs, different tariffs on different countries. You want to talk about that first?
Yes, sir. By the time the 5-month period has elapsed, we'll have completed investigations under Section 301, which Secretary Besson talked about. We know there are countries out there with deals who are very interested in keeping the deals. We need to go through and investigate all these unfair trading practices, the kinds of things you talked about, and make sure that we're protecting U.S. economic security. We know there are countries.
How are we going to treat Germany?
Well,
I think you should hit them very, very hard.
you knew he was right there when you said that, Mr. President. They have expressed an interest. Germany's been quite constructive in wanting to move forward and be helpful. You know, the rest of you will talk to them as well. But obviously
I will say every country, every single country wants to make the deal they already have. In other words, a deal that we have using the other authority, they want to make the same deal. And we'd like to see, actually, we're going to adjust it somewhat upward, actually, but they all want to stay in the deal. And so we'll probably be able to do that pretty easily.
Mr. President, from Ukraine, after all, Iran won't be able to deliver drones to Russia anymore. So what does this more mean to Ukraine? And having Chancellor Merz sitting next to you, who would you call if you want to talk to Europe? And Chancellor Merz, you've just been in China, the president.
Who are you? What country are you from?
I'm from Germany.
Okay, I thought so. I could see.
So, Mr. Chancellor, you have been in China, and the president.
She likes you.
In China.
I don't know.
Will you be talking about China and what you
We'll be talking about China, yeah. Sure.
And what about Ukraine?
I'll be going to China in a little while. Every time you meet, you talk about China. We respect China. I do. We both do, I think. But it's always a topic of conversation. We've had a very good relationship with China. We used to lose a tremendous amount of money with China, and that's no longer the case. We have a very, very good relationship with China, and we have a very good relationship with Germany. All right.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. President. We've seen countries around the world, many of whom don't usually work together, working with the United States on Iran, whether it's, Saudi Arabia working with the United States, Israel, Qatari shooting down Iranian aircraft, and we've also seen European countries step up. Why are we seeing, such unity around the world against Iran?
That's a great point. Look, they're just evil. They're, it's not the politics, it's their whole philosophy, it's their whole, where they come from. It's terrible. Where they killed 35,000, I thought it was 32, now it turns out it's much more than 35,000 people. And in some cases using machine guns with people that have no weapon. They have no weapon, and they're being machine gunned, they're being sniped from buildings, they're hitting the people with snipers right through the eyes. It's just a very evil ideology. And nobody's really seen anything like it. As I said, even the fact that they've attacked all of their neighbors, and the neighbors weren't attacking. They thought they'd maybe sit it out or what. They've hit Qatar, they've hit UAE, they've hit Saudi Arabia, they've hit Oman. They were helping us negotiate. They got hit. Everybody got hit because they're evil and they're bad. It's a bad seed. And somebody had to do it. And it should have been done sometime during a 47-year period because so much death has been caused by them, so much unbelievable death. From Germany, too. Germany's been hit. Everybody's been hit by them. It's an evil ideology. And I've never been, look, I've done a lot of good things. So many people are saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. You see it in the streets of Los Angeles. They have thousands of people. I saw it the other day, pictures of Donald Trump. And I'm looking, I'm on the phone, probably talking to you. And I'm looking, and I see my picture. I say, oh, no, it's another, protest. I see my, and then I started saying, boy, they were very friendly people. And then I saw a woman hugging the picture of me. I said, what's going on? And it turned out to be these are Iranian people that live in the United States.
So many.
Thousands and thousands. You saw the rallies. And in New York, too, they had a big rally by pictures all over the place. The fact is that people are happy what we did. And you could never, and I've always said it, you could never have had true peace in the Middle East if Iran was allowed to go, even beyond the nuclear. If Iran was allowed to have all the, look at all the missiles they built. A lot have been now taken out by us, and a lot have been expended. But they had thousands of missiles in a fairly short period of time. And I'll go two things. The attack that we did, known as Midnight Hammer, had we not done that, Iran would have had a very powerful nuclear weapon within 1 month. We did it. It was great timing, but, you know, and you've been able to see that too. The other thing was Barack Hussein Obama made maybe the worst deal I've ever seen, because he gave all power in the Middle East to Iran. He went the exact opposite way, and I terminated that. If I didn't terminate that deal, they would be sitting with a massive nuclear weapon 3 years ago, which would have been used already on Israel at least, and other countries also. And we wouldn't be talking about it right now. But if I didn't terminate the deal that Obama made, giving them everything, including plane loads of cash. Do you remember the airplane flew over there? It was a Boeing 757. There was 2 of them, loaded. They took out all the seats. It was loaded with green cash. So much cash that you could, it was in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. They got all the cash from all the banks. They put it, and they flew it to Iran. I never knew a president had that power. I'm going to maybe try it sometime if it's okay. I think I'm going to do it. I'll fly it somewhere. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. 2 planes loaded from floor to ceiling, big planes, Boeing 757s, taken over there and given cash. In addition to that, he was giving them billions of dollars. But worse, he was giving them the right to have the path to a nuclear weapon. And that deal expired. A lot of people said, oh, you terminated it. Well, it was going to be terminated anyway because it expired. It gave them the right to have top-of-the-line nuclear weapon. If they had, because they're crazy, just like the people on my right during the State of the Union. I looked at them, I said, you're crazy? These people are crazy. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. All right, how about 1 or 2 more?
Mr. President.
Go ahead, please.
You just heard that the president is thinking about punishing Spain. What are your thoughts spontaneously on this, and what can you do to?
Well, the answer on that is quite simple. We are trying to convince Spain to catch up with the 3% or 3.5%, which we agreed on in NATO. And as the president said, it's correct. Spain is the only one who is not willing to accept that. And we are trying to convince them that this is a part of our common security, that we all have to comply with these numbers. And this is 3.5 for military and another 1.5 for our military infrastructure. So Spain has to comply with that.
Spain has been very, very uncooperative. And so has UK. Now, the second one is shocking, but this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? And they ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. My mother was born there. My father was born. Right? He knows all about my father. My father was born there. So you know, very places that you sort of automatically very feel warmly about. But the UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. You have the North Sea. Somebody said yesterday, what would you do if you were the UK? Open up the North Sea. They got windmills all over the place that are ruining the country, ruining the landscapes, ruining the beautiful fields. Open up the North Sea. It's one of the greatest, think of it, they buy their energy from Norway, which gets the energy, the oil, from the North Sea. So Norway drills in the North Sea and sells it to UK. And UK has a better part of the North Sea. Open up that. And number two, illegal immigration. They got to solve that problem. And I must say, that's not only UK, that's other parts of the European Union that have the same problem. Immigration and energy. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration is, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK, you have a terrible mayor of London, terrible, he's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back. Okay. One more. Go ahead.
I have a question for the Chancellor and
Yes,
for you.
please.
To the Chancellor, Chancellor Merz,
Yeah.
you've called for unity and joint force in this moment against Iran. What does that look like to you? And then, Mr. President, where is getting a deal with Russia and Ukraine on your priority list right now?
Okay, where you going?
So we, as I said, in Germany, the last 2 days, we are supporting the United States and Israel to get rid of this terrible terrorist regime. And we are looking forward to a day after, and we have to talk about the strategy, what is following after this regime is away, and we have to strategize on this entire region, and we are having a high interest in common approach and common work and what we can do, and this is important not just for the Americans. This is extremely important for Europe and extremely important for Israel and their security. So we are really looking forward to find ways how to deal about the day after.
And as far as Russia, Ukraine, where is it on my priority list? Very high. We thought that, I thought it was going to be one of the easier ones. I've settled 8 wars, and actually maybe one more than that. But minimum 8 wars, big ones, potential India, Pakistan, big wars, very important, big ones. I thought this was going to be much easier than it is. There's tremendous hatred between President Putin and President Zelensky, tremendous hatred. I've seen a lot of hatred in my life, but I think this is about top scale. I believe it's going to happen. Sometimes I blame one, sometimes I blame the other. I think it's going to happen, but it's high on my list. Not in that it affects the United States so much, because it's very far away, but last week, last week and for the last 4 weeks actually, 32,000 soldiers died. 32,000. And it's been averaging 25 to 30,000 soldiers a month have been dying in that stupid war. And I'd love to see it ended. It's the worst that there has been since World War II.
If you can't get a deal, what will that mean for you?
All you can do is do your best, you know. It takes 2 to tango, and they have to get along. They have to be able to talk to each other. They hate each other a lot. That has an impact, you know. It really has an impact. It's bad for both. The saddest is that if the election weren't rigged, my election, that war would have never taken place. And you know what else wouldn't have taken place? Allowing 25 million people to pour through an open border, that wouldn't have taken place. A lot of things would have been different. But we're doing very well, and I think a big factor in this world and future factor is what we're doing right now with Iran. If we don't stop them, or if we didn't stop them, or if we didn't start, they've been decimated. But if we didn't do what we're doing right now, you would have had a nuclear war, and they would have taken out many countries, because you know what? They're sick people. They're mentally ill, sick people. They're angry. They're crazy. They're sick. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Keep moving. Thank you. I think I got it. Thank you. This way. Thank you, press. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Anything else more? Thank you, guys.
طيبة عدس بطلع هي عملت اكلات؟ ها؟ بتضربني انت جديد؟ انا براجل لازم يكون عم طعمية اشياء يلعبوا هرمونات تعال رجع مطلع طلع عادي طعمية طلع هيك طبعا بسبب انه كان جزء منه بارد انا وجهي لهون اطراف الدرج هي اللي ضربت البكس يعني 5 طلعوا هيك نزلوا بعد 3-4 ثواني الدرجة بتصير لا مش في اساس تسمع شقة صاروخ في وين؟ الو استعد لي الحسن بوج الميادين شفناهم نحن صرنا نقول شو هذا انا قلت معقول والله بيني وبين حالي معقول صار هيك 30-35 سنة سمعناهم لا بس 24 حدا طبعا
الاعلام هون صاروا يحكوا عن حدث اول شيء بلش فيها الحدث عربيا. بس كانوا هم ما قالوا شيء. لا ما قالوا ابدا. جابوا سيرته.
اول يوم قالوا محمد رعد
الاسرائيليين
حدث نقلا عن مصدر اسرائيلي موساد حدث من وين بتجيب التسريب تبع المعلومات تاعونا. تخيل لما اغتالوا فؤاد شكر اول حدا طلع قال بالحرف الواحد فؤاد تم اغتيال فؤاد شكر من طيب من وين المعلومه تبعيتها؟
عارفين من دار اصلا هي بس يكون واحد بيعرف ولا شك.
هو الاسرائيلي اول اسرائيلي بيكب الحربيه عبرهم يعني. عرفت كيف؟ وقت السيد مين اللي قال السيد؟ هم
السيد انا بس شفت هالقد كميه تاريخ نزل مع بعض قد بستعد فيها ما بيصرفوا هالقد ما بيصرفوا على خلاص حلقه ايه حجم الغرفه جاي من شنو؟ صعيد
Secretary Noem has cut staff at CISA by a third. You've proposed cutting $500 million from the CISA budget. You talk about critical infrastructure, I know it well. And this is after having transferred $144 million from CISA to ICE last year for immigration enforcement. All this at a time when our country is more vulnerable to cyber attacks than ever. Another example of Kristi Noem's failed leadership. And now the department's also playing political games with the distribution of disaster aid, another sign of failed leadership. And on the topic of immigration enforcement, despite the DHS database that supposedly showcases the worst of the worst, a DHS spokesperson recently admitted that the database was full of inaccurate information. What we know is true, based on DHS's own data, is that less than 14% of those arrested by ICE and CBP have previously been charged with or convicted of violent crimes. Lies had become the pattern or practice of Kristi Noem's DHS. In the fall of last year, Secretary Noem asserted that no American citizens have been arrested or detained, despite more than 170 verified reports to the contrary. During a House Homeland Security Committee oversight hearing recently, Secretary Noem claimed that DHS had not deported veterans, not under this administration. And seconds later, Representative Magaziner presented via a video call Se Jung Park, a veteran who earned a Purple Heart, but was deported by Secretary Noem's DHS. And so it comes as no surprise that not just the secretary directly, but her representatives within the department have repeatedly lied to the American people about how the officers and agents under her charge have beaten, tased, shot at, and killed. Secretary Noem, before you even knew the facts or even allowed for a credible investigation to be conducted, You called Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists for exercising their First Amendment rights. And just last week, DHS lied yet again about abandoning a Rohingya refugee, a nearly blind man who couldn't speak or understand English, in the parking lot of a closed coffee shop, only for him to die in the freezing streets of Buffalo. These are not accusations, colleagues.
ما بعرف ليه يعني ما كنت افهم ليه شو عملت لوين رايح ليه رايح يعني فت طلعت على القصات هذه ليه انا بس
You want those put in the record? Without objection. Secretary Noem, in a couple minutes, if you want to respond. If you don't want to, I'll go to Senator Moody.
I just wish that Senator Padilla would have used his time to talk about Kate Steinle or other families that lost loved ones that aren't here anymore because of violent, illegal criminals that are in this country that we are charged with removing to protect American citizens. He didn't use any of his time to talk about victims that have been perpetuated by Joe Biden's invasion over the southern border. He didn't talk about the 1.7 billion lives that were saved by the amount of drugs that we've stopped in the last year from coming into our country and killing Americans and many other people. He didn't talk about the fact that we have the lowest murder rate in the last 125 years because of President Trump and the work that he has done to keep Americans safe. He didn't talk about the fact that American citizens should be the priority in this country because they're American citizens. I know he's very concerned about illegal aliens, but my job as the Secretary of Homeland Security is to get up every day and to put American citizens first and keep them safe here in the homeland. And I'll continue to defend the homeland every moment of every day that I get the chance and that I'm blessed to. Thank you.
Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for being here today. I know it's been a long morning, and certainly we appreciate you being here to answer some really tough questions. But I think questions that are important to have for the American people to know what their government is doing and how it's placing their interests first, finally. And caring about the sovereignty and safety and security and stability of this country. And I know President Trump came in on day one and said, we're taking this back. We've just witnessed years and years of devastation to our communities as a result of a president who was asleep at the wheel or allowed the radicals to run the White House and just pretty much abolished ICE, abolished Border Patrol, basically. I mean, just in your understanding, I know you have previously served as a congresswoman, as a governor, but just in your understanding, have you ever seen anything like the dereliction of duty by a president as it relates to immigration and the safety of a nation?
No, it was alarming. And under that invasion, every state was a border state. Even though I was from South Dakota and the governor there, we were the first state to deploy National Guard down to help support Texas in their efforts to keep our country safe because we saw millions of people coming into this country unvetted. We saw other countries sending their criminals and emptying out their prisons and their mental health institutes and sending people to our country to make them our problem and to deal with and to try to protect our American citizens from any crimes that they would commit. So that's why I took this job and why I'm blessed and honored that President Trump has asked me to do this job, is because I get the chance every single day to try to stop the damage that invasion has corrected and to try to make sure that America is safe here on our homeland.
Your predecessor sat right there in front of this committee. I sure wish I would have been on this committee at the time. At the time, I was the Florida Attorney General dealing with the effects and consequences, the jeopardy to the safety of Floridians as a result of President Biden and his policies. But your predecessor, Mayorkas, sat right there and said under oath that the border was secure and that they were following the laws. And in fact, when I knew with my team, my great team in Florida, not only within the Attorney General's office, but with the sheriffs across the state, local law enforcement, they saw what was happening. They saw the trafficking of children. They saw the peddling of poison in our communities. They saw what was happening as a result of an unencumbered border, a non-existent border, and the effects it was having in our state. I saw that firsthand. In fact, President Biden came in, and in his policies, and I think it's really important that we put this in perspective, because we have some families here today with us that have lost loved ones. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for reminding us of the duty that we owe the American people to protect them through our policies, and not just adopting good policies like here in the Congress, but making sure they are faithfully executed and enforced by the executive branch, which is what the Constitution requires of our president. And so I appreciate you being here and reminding us all of the solemn responsibility and duties that we owe you. And we owe every American out there that's trusted us with these roles. President Biden came in and upended precedent of Democratic and Republican presidents. And that precedent was to deport those here illegally that had committed felony crimes, from trafficking to violent crimes to other types of crimes where they would have been deported. They stopped doing that. They reversed that policy. We also saw policies at the border that required more and more people to be pushed in. I would say, and I said many times, they are requiring a certain number of people every day to be pushed in, quotas, and they were demanding that they process faster until vetting was practically non-existent. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember that anywhere between 11 million and the 20 million people that came in, we were talking about the fact that encountered people were on the terrorist watch list, had been murderers, had been rapists, had been drug traffickers. We had encountered those people that were trying to come in. But can you acknowledge, and do you remember, that there were many gotaways, millions, that we have no idea their background? We have no idea why they didn't walk up and go to the welcoming committee, which was what President Biden rolled out. We don't know their backgrounds, and we don't know where they are today. Is that correct?
Yes, and because the Biden administration pulled Border Patrol agents off the border and used them to process people and to feed people and to move paperwork, great chunks of our border had no surveillance at all. There was no security on other chunks of our border, and the cartel used that as a mechanism to divert attention. They would push thousands of people across the border in locations so that the other part of the border miles down could be exposed, and they could move their human trafficking and their drugs across the border unimpeded. The Biden administration facilitated that and gave the cartels exactly what they needed to enrich themselves, to commit their crimes, and to build themselves up and perpetuate more violence. And that's why we're dealing with cartels now that are foreign terrorist organizations that are everywhere in this country. Years ago, you wouldn't even heard of foreign gangs like MS-13 or TDA. In fact, TDA didn't have a presence.
Taking over apartment complexes.
Yes, absolutely.
But we sure saw that during the Biden administration.
Yeah,
and in addition to breaking down any sense of border, pushing more and more in, more and more, to where the Border Patrol said they were telling us they were asking us for our advice how not to stop it, but how they could process faster. They also built programs to make it easier during that surge, overwhelming surge, using apps to make it easier to come over here. And many of those folks were not vetted. In fact, we found them committing crimes in our nation after they came over on the app. Is that correct?
That is
An app
correct.
I alleged was illegal and couldn't be done, but yet they pushed forward even though we were experiencing a historic surge and influx at our border. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
In fact, some Democratic states even had to declare an emergency based on Biden's policies and what was going on, right?
That is correct.
And they declared an emergency, and they demanded more money from the administration because they couldn't keep pace with the emergency that the Democratic President Biden and his radical handlers created.
Correct.
And at the same time as Florida Attorney General, I got calls from around my state that drug traffickers that were prosecuted here that were not American citizens, but they were incarcerated in federal prisons. So I want to underscore this. The only reason they're in America is because they were drug traffickers. They were not American citizens. We brought them here. We prosecuted them here. And they were serving an incarcerative portion of their sentence. And after that, instead of deporting them back to their country after they did that, they were pushing them back into the communities where they were prosecuted, even though they weren't citizens. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you know that during that time period, when I pressed for information on who they were and where they were going and where they were being pushed, do you know that they They stymied our efforts and would not give us that information. Would you say that what you are faced with as a secretary is unlike any successor has had to deal with in terms of cleaning up a dangerous, threatening situation created by their predecessor?
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just the illegal immigration situation. It's the crime. It's the amount of individuals in this country that wish to do us harm that they let in, the amount of known and suspected terrorists that we know are here that we need to find and remove before they perpetuate harm on this country, to the neglect at FEMA, the politicization of FEMA, how they only did disaster response to individuals who aligned with the Democratic Party and their ideals and ignored other families who were suffering and had lost everything. What we saw as far as not investing in Secret Service and TSA and intelligence and analysis. And then CISA was manipulated and censoring people's First Amendment rights. It was deciding what was misinformation and disinformation and trying to manipulate election outcomes, and that has been fixed. So under the 23 agencies.
How important is it? In Florida, I was so proud of my state. When we had an administration that came in and said, we're going to put the American interest safety first again. And it was so clear who supports that at the State of the Union.
Yep.
Every one of the counties, 67 counties in my state signed up and said, we will help you. We will enter in agreements with you. We will help you track these people down that should not be here, that have committed crimes. We will work with you. I, as a senator, said, let's get you money to help reimburse them for those efforts. Does that make a difference? And did you see a difference in the way you engaged with states and the stability and safety of all involved when you didn't have people working with you hand in hand?
Oh, absolutely. And we're thrilled. We have over 1,400 law enforcement agreements through the 287G program at the state and local level that have partnered with us to do operations to address public safety threats and to get them out of communities. And those individuals that are local law enforcement are critical partners in the success and safety of the American people.
And I would just ask for you to keep engaging with those sheriffs of the local communities, asking how they think best to safely do these operations. I think
just spent yesterday with all of our sheriffs, with all 4 associations and hundreds of sheriffs, thanking them for the work they do.
Thank you for being here.
Senator Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the families who are here who have lost loved ones, both who lost loved ones to violence perpetrated by immigrants, but also to those who have been seriously injured by ICE agents, and to those watching who have had family members killed by ICE agents. Madam Secretary, I want to ask you about one of the first claims you made in the immediate aftermath of the shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. You accused them both, I think, within hours of engaging in domestic terrorism. You've testified earlier that you did so based on preliminary field reports. Who told you that these 2 victims were engaged in domestic terrorism? Where did you get that information from?
I've said before, and will repeat again for you, Senator, that those reports were coming from on-the-ground agents that were there. It was a chaotic scene.
So you spoke to agents on the ground who told you they were domestic terrorism?
Yes.
Domestic terrorists?
My team was working with me, talking to those agents on the ground to relay as much information as possible that we could to the American people.
Your team told you that people in Minneapolis said they were domestic terrorists. Did they tell you whether they had any basis for that claim within either minutes or hours of the shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
Sir, if you look back at the day of January 24th, there was a press conference earlier in the day, and then I held one hours later.
So I'm asking
and we were also
asking you, did you determine whether there was any basis for the sensational claim, a claim that proved to be utterly false, that these 2 victims were engaged in domestic terrorism?
There is an investigation ongoing. The FBI is leading that. There's also internal investigations that are ongoing.
I'm asking you
we'll continue to bring the facts forward.
Excuse me, Madam Secretary. I'm asking about your statements. In the immediate aftermath of these shootings, your statements based on completely unvetted information that if it was even provided to you proved to be utterly false, that you were content to tell the whole country Do you have any concern about misleading the whole country? Don't you think in the immediate aftermath of a shooting that you should provide only vetted information to the public? How do you imagine you're going to gain the trust of the American people if you're pushing out false information about the shooting of American citizens?
I work every day to get factual information to the American
you
people.
Didn't on that day. You didn't on the day that Alex Preddy was shot, and you certainly didn't on the day Renee Good was shot. You weren't getting out good information. You were making a spurious claim that has caused endless injury to the victims' families on the basis of God knows what. And then your agency doesn't allow local investigators. They essentially push away independent investigators. How's the public to have any confidence in investigations done of excessive use by ICE agents if, number one, you make immediate and false statements about the victims, and number two, you don't let any independent agency conduct an investigation? How is the public supposed to believe anything your agency says or finds?
These investigations are being done in the same way that they always are.
No, they're
and
not
the
being done.
FBI is
They're
leading.
not being
There
done
are
the way they
internal
always were,
investigations
because you're
as
not
well.
allowing-
In these situations,
You're not
ICE has an
allowing-
internal investigation.
Excuse me.
Well, would you like to hear about the investigations that are ongoing?
You're not allowing state and local investigators to
That is
participate.
not my decision.
And furthermore,
The Department of Justice and the FBI decides how investigations
they're not being
go.
conducted in the way investigations are always done. Are you telling me that in the case of Miramar Martinez, that having an agent involved in shooting her, drive a vehicle that was used to ram into her vehicle, drive that vehicle, that evidence away from the scene and 1,000 miles to Maine, you're telling me that's the way investigations are always done? That you let an agent involved in an officer-involved shooting drive a key piece of evidence 1,000 miles away? Is that how you conduct investigations at DHS?
I'm not conducting these investigations into these. The Department of Justice with the FBI is conducting those investigations, and CBP.
For how investigations are conducted
we
when
follow
when agents under your control are engaged in
the
use of
investigations.
force?
The investigations into our officers have not changed
I know there's
under my leadership or the president's leadership than what they were under the previous administration.
That's being done by Pam Bondi's Justice Department. I'm not responsible for that.
Our internal
malpractice,
investigations are following the same policies
that's the orders
that they
of
always
Stephen
have.
Miller, so I'm not responsible for that either. But you are responsible. You are responsible. You could insist on independent investigations, but you're not. You could wait until there's good information after a shooting before you go to the press and the public and mislead them. Let me ask you about a different subject, and that is the waste of resources at your agency, the continued allegations of favoritism and contracting, and let me in particular focus on the $220 million ad campaign, many of which feature you very prominently. An ad campaign that is more expensive than the whole budget for One Fight After Another or any Hollywood blockbuster film. So let me ask you, you said that the president approved this vast expenditure on a media campaign that largely profiles you. How do you know that? Did he approve it to you personally?
This media campaign was critical in telling the world and this country that we are enforcing the laws in the United States of America. That if you're in your country illegally, then you should leave now, or if you want the chance to come back to the United States someday in the future. If you don't, you will be detained and will be removed and never get the chance to come back. It's been extremely effective in sending the message.
Madam Secretary, how do you know the president approved of this $220 million contract?
We had conversations and worked with OMB to make sure that the funding was there.
Excuse me, I just want to clarify. So you had conversations directly with the president where he approved this $220 million ad campaign that significantly features you?
Sir, this campaign was talking about making sure that people knew that our laws were being enforced.
Again, I want to make sure that
we continue to go through the process. It was a competitive bid campaign. I had nothing of choosing.
Excuse me, so the president approved this expenditure?
Sir, I've been explaining this to you how when it was a competitive process,
Well,
the
okay,
career
you say it was
officials at the
competitive process.
Department of
I guess
Homeland Security
you don't want to
chose
confirm
the
the
best
president's role in this, and I can understand why. But you say it was a competitive process, and yet this contract went to a company that didn't exist 2 weeks before they got the contract.
Sir, I can't speak
And
to that. I don't
no,
know the name of that company.
You're saying you can't speak to it, but let me ask you this. Are you saying it's just a coincidence? It's just a happy circumstance? It's just a fortuitous event that 143 million of that went to a subcontractor that you worked with extensively as governor in South Dakota or during your campaign, that is just coincidental?
The same process was followed for this media contract than any other media contract that's happened.
Just a coincidence.
At the Department of Homeland Security, I had nothing to do, and no political had any.
Nothing to do with it.
No choosing of who the contractors. And we don't have a legal process for weighing in on subcontractors. It doesn't exist.
Excuse me, just a coincidence. Also, then that this $143 million.
To ask questions, you should want the answer.
I'm trying to ask a question.
You're trying to say that this was a political decision, and it absolutely was not.
I'm just asking you. So it's just a coincidence that a $143 million subcontract went to the husband of your press person, also someone that Corey Lewandowski, one of your special government employees, worked with extensively. So that was all a coincidence, right? Because you had no knowledge of this, no involvement.
Media company that
and none
gets
of the
the
people
contract,
around you had any involvement.
the ability to
so
choose the
taxpayers should just
subcontractors.
assume
We don't
this
weigh
is a
in
coincidence.
on who subcontractors are. There's not a legal process for us to determine what subcontractors are a part of a contract
So can
that
you-
goes out
can
for a
you
competitive
state-
bid.
can you state
And
for the
only
record-
career employees at
excuse me,
DHS were in on the
Can you
choosing of
state
those
for
media
the record
contracts.
then that neither you nor Mr. Lewandowski nor your press secretary married to the husband of the person who got this $143 million
We were not
contract,
a part of the
can you
decision
state for the
making.
record that none of you that I've just described had any role, played any part, made any communication with any government agency that was involved in deciding who would get that contract?
To the best of my knowledge, none of us were involved in deciding who got those contracts
Not
for the media
deciding, but
campaign.
were any of you involved in advocating, communicating, or expressing a
Not to
preference
my knowledge,
in any
Senator,
way
not to
with
my
the government?
knowledge,
Excuse
Senator.
me. Let me just finish the question. Were any of you involved in any way in communicating, expressing a preference in any form, manner, verbal, written, with any government agency that was involved in the contracting
The
process?
same process was followed for that contract that is
You're
for
not
all
answering
media
my question.
contracts that have gone forward. To my knowledge,
Yes or no?
there was no involvement whatsoever of anybody that is on the political appointee side of this position and that media contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, good to see you again.
Good to see you, too.
If I could just start with a Missouri question. Last time you and I visited over in the Homeland Security Committee, it was shortly following a massive series of tornadoes in the state of Missouri. And you and I talked about that. You pledged your full support and FEMA's support in cleaning up the devastation which has happened. I thank you for that. I just want to follow up on one challenge that has come in the wake of the devastation. In the partnership with the state of Missouri, the city of St. Louis has stood up a debris removal project. Local officials currently estimate that about 10,000 homes, these were very significant tornadoes, about 10,000 homes in the area will require some assistance, debris removal assistance, by the time that efforts are completed. FEMA has very helpfully helped to fund this debris removal. Thank you for that. My question for you is, some of the conditions that have been placed on the funds by FEMA mean that only 100 or 200 homes out of those 10,000 can actually get access to FEMA debris removal funds. Here's my question for you. Would you be willing to work with me and the state of Missouri to see if we can remove some of this red tape so that more folks, more residents in the city, we're talking about thousands and thousands of people now, can get access to the debris removal and cleanup and get back in their homes if they need to, have their homes appropriately remedied so that folks can get a roof over their head.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Thank you again for all of your help on this. It's really been tremendous. I've heard a lot of complaining. You've heard a lot of complaining today. Let's just take a second to talk about the unqualified success that you have enjoyed since coming to office and been a big part of since the president has taken office. Daily migrant encounters are down 92% from their peak under Joe Biden. Daily border apprehensions are down 95%. In fact, if I've got my numbers right, you correct me if I'm wrong, Last year, Southwest border apprehensions came in at the lowest annual total since 1970. So in 55 years, for 7 consecutive months, Border Patrol has released 0 illegal aliens into the country. 0. I mean, that is really something. And I want to make sure I get this number right. Removals. Your department reports that more than 2.5 million illegal aliens have left the United States since January of last year, over 620,000 through formal deportation proceedings, and an estimated 1.9 million through self-deportation. That's just an extraordinary...
Also because of the interdiction efforts that we've had between the Coast Guard being out there on Operation Riverwall, but also on our maritime waters doing interdiction there as well in partnership with CBP, in partnership with ICE and the Department of War, which are fantastic partners for us. We have confiscated and interdicted over 1.7 billion lethal doses of drugs, which means that is 1.7 billion people whose lives were saved because we stopped the cartels and other drug manufacturers from proliferating it on our children and our grandchildren.
How about crime? What has it meant for crime in this country?
We have historic low crime rates. In fact, since we've been keeping this data for 125 years, we've never had a lower murder rate than what we have right now. Even though we deal with challenges in sanctuary cities and in areas where they don't partner with us to bring and address public safety threats, we still have done fantastic work in getting criminals, murderers, and rapists off of our streets and protecting the American people.
How about human trafficking?
It's incredible the amount of ability that HSI has brought to the table in partnering with the FBI and going after human traffickers. In fact, of the 450,000 children that Joe Biden lost track of, allowed cartels to manipulate and traffickers to abuse, and even the government paid sponsors to abuse these children, we have found 145,000 of them, and we're not going to stop until we find every single one.
I'm glad that you mentioned child trafficking because it's so important, and I'll never forget having a whistleblower from HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, which you oversee, come to me in 2023 and reveal that 600 HSI investigators who were assigned to child exploitation and fentanyl cases, 600 of them had been pulled off of those child exploitation and fentanyl cases and moved to the southern border to, in the words of the whistleblower, make sandwiches for illegal immigrants and ferry them back and forth to doctor's appointments. At the same time that the administration in power at the time, the Biden administration, was, as you said, allowing and facilitating the largest child trafficking ring in American history. You have, I'm confident, remedied that problem and reassigned those HSI agents back to child exploitation, back to the interdiction of fentanyl. Let me just ask you about where child trafficking is moving now, which is increasingly online. I want to show you a chart here that is truly shocking, I think. This chart records the number of images and videos of suspected child abuse uploaded just in the United States, just in the year 2023. The far right side records the number just in 2023, 104,370,572 images of exploited children. In that same year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimated that there were 20,500,000 cases, individual cases of suspected child abuse and child exploitation online. Now, there are many facets of this, but many of these images are being hosted on big tech platforms, social media platforms, and now AI platforms. We talked about Homeland Security Investigations. You have a mandate and a unit to investigate child exploitation, to work with the FBI to prosecute it. My question is, first, are you getting cooperation when it comes to identifying the children in these images? Are you getting cooperation from the social media platforms who frequently are hosting these images to identify and then to take down the images? Are they helping you in your work of going after the abusers?
Yes, they are partnering with us. there's always more we can do, but President Trump has done a fantastic job bringing them to the table and getting them to engage with us to go after these criminals and these individuals who abuse our children.
You know, my big concern is with all of these data centers, I think there's 3,000 or 4,000 in the United States and another 4,000 that are coming online. If we don't take action soon and keep the pressure up to get rid of these images and to get the trafficking rings that are using these platforms to carry on their exploitation and to feed their trafficking rings, if we don't do that, I'm afraid that these data centers are going to be child porn libraries. You know, we're going to have 4,000 more child porn libraries in the United States of America. I don't want that. I know that you don't want that. And I just want to call on these companies again here today to take down these images and to allow the victims of these images and of this exploitation to be able to get into court and have their day in court. Currently, these companies are completely immune from any accountability in court, as you know, Madam Secretary. This is completely anomalous and totally unjust. And the companies ought to say, we will take down these images, we will work cooperatively with you, we will not support the traffickers, and we will stop this epidemic of child exploitation. Let me ask you one more thing about this. You know, with all of these images of kids online, I was shocked to learn recently that hundreds of thousands of children in these images are unidentified, which means that we don't know who they are, we don't know where they are, and maybe most significantly, we don't know where their abusers are. Now, I know that DHS works very hard on this. You have an entire section that works on victim identification and rescue. My question is to you, is it time for Congress maybe to give you some more resources? Yeah, I know that you've got agents who are working hard, but the truth of the matter is, I was looking through your budget, you know, you just don't have that many folks who are able to work on victim identification. I was looking at the Interpol numbers. There's multiple databases of these exploited children. In the Interpol database alone, 90,000 kids are completely unidentified. In the UK's database, it's over 200,000. So here are these kids, there are pictures of them getting abused, exploited. We don't know who they are. We don't know where to send folks. Would it be helpful to you? Here's my question. Would it be helpful to you if Congress said, you know what, we're going to create more analysts, more child abuse expert positions, more forensic analysts, and more prosecutors to give to you to look at these images, figure out who these kids are, and go after their abusers? Would that be helpful in tackling this epidemic?
Yes, it'd be incredibly helpful, and especially HSI are experts at this work, and to have more resources to focus on these investigations would free more kids from that life of victimhood.
Tremendous. Well, I look forward to working with you on that. I'm going to introduce legislation to do just that. Thank you for the terrific work you're doing to end the epidemic of child exploitation in our country, to find the missing children that were brought in over the border, but also to find these children and to bring their abusers to justice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Welch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the families that are here, and you have my condolences. We appreciate your participation. I'd also like to acknowledge others who've lost their lives as a result of violence that did occur with ICE agents. Second, on the question of, Madam Secretary, welcome, on the question of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, I heard your answers to my colleague, Senator Schiff. But knowing what you do know, do you want to take an opportunity to apologize to their families that you characterized them on the basis of the information you had at the time, that they were engaged in domestic terrorism?
Yeah, I certainly offer my condolences to these families and for their loss. And it's a tragic situation that we saw in Minneapolis, and we continue to work to make sure that those situations are handled appropriately.
My question. I understand you're offering condolences. You said something that accused them of being domestic terrorists. A 37-year-old mother of three, a 37-year-old Veteran Administration nurse. One question, do you want to apologize for that characterization that they were domestic terrorists?
I will continue every day to get up and to work hard to give everybody factual information and do all that I can to portray it.
I want to move on to the use of department resources. Senator Kennedy asked a number of questions about this contract, $220 million. Senator Schiff asked about it as well, and I do too. I don't want to question what the purpose was, but how the award was made. This is $220 million. It was an advertising campaign, as I understand it, that featured you, and you on a horse at Mount Rushmore. The contract was a no-bid contract. You acknowledge that?
I wasn't involved with this contracting process, so my understanding is that there was many companies that competed for this contract.
The answer to that is yes or no.
I don't believe it was. I believe other
All right,
companies competed for this because there was two different vendors that were chosen.
I have here a document from usspending.gov. And this document specifically states the justification for no bid contract that goes to Safe America Media and People Who Think. Those are the two entities that did the campaign, correct?
I believe it is. I wasn't a part of this contracting process.
Let's get serious here.
Yes.
Okay. Make the Safe America was run, incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my count before they got an award of $143 million. You have any dispute with that?
Are you talking about the subcontractor on that contract? Because we have
America.
Senator, I wasn't a part of this decision.
Okay.
We followed the same processes that have been our policies and how this was conducted appropriately.
I will go through this and then you can answer. I don't want us to be talking over each other. Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my account before they got a $143 million contract. Now, as a administrator who has fiscal responsibility over a huge budget, do you realistically think that a company that was created 11 days before they got $143 million is in a position to execute on a $143 million contract?
Senator, I can't speak to their business model. I will tell you that since I've been at the department, I have reviewed over 10,000 contracts. I have saved the taxpayers over $13 billion
I want to go through this,
by
Madam
renegotiating
Secretary.
contracts and being more efficient.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want the filibuster. All right? And I want my time back. I'm not denying her a chance to answer. I'm asking you to deny her the abuse to filibuster. Okay.
Of that.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll go through this. All right. This is on a U.S. government website that says that contract for $143 million was a no-bid contract. Public documentation says the contract of $143 million went to the Safe America company, created 11 days before they got an award. That company then subcontracted with the strategy group, and you are familiar with many of the principals in the strategy group, correct?
I know one of them.
Mr. Yoho.
Yes.
And let me show you a photograph. That's Mr. Yoho standing next to you, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Yoho is also the husband of your former spokesperson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tricia McLaughlin.
Yes.
So your former secretary, your former assistant secretary and her husband are the ones that got the subcontract from Safe America, or from Safe America. That's what the record shows. Any dispute about that?
No, except there was no politicals, myself or anyone else besides career employees who were a part of that process.
Except
for putting out those contracts and choosing those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not insinuating. I'm stating a fact. the fact is
You're saying that I
Mr.
weighed in on this
Yoho-
contracting
Mis-
process, and I did not.
Mr. Chairman, the fact is that Mr. Yoho was married to your assistant secretary, is married, correct?
Yes, they are still married.
All right. And Mr. Yoho also ran an ad campaign for you in your gubernatorial campaign, correct?
Yes,
And he also attended your inauguration.
yes.
And Mr. Yoho received $8.5 million, or his company did, from the taxpayers of South Dakota when you ran an ad promotion showing you doing various jobs like a plumber and a dentist, correct?
Again, that was done according to the law and processes at the state of South
I
Dakota.
understand, but
Yeah,
this
so-
is a person that worked on your campaign. This is a person that worked on your media plan in South Dakota when you were governor. And this is a person who also worked on your memoir. Is that correct?
On my memoir?
And he worked with Mr. Lewandowski. Is that correct?
I don't know, sir. I don't know about the business
Mr.
arrangements they've had in the
Lewandowski
past.
is your special advisor.
Special government employee.
Right.
For the White
and
House.
Mr. Lewandowski brought Mr. Yoho into your camp. They had worked on the Louisiana governor's campaign, correct?
No, I knew Ben Yoho before that.
All right. So the person that you knew, Mr. Yoho, the husband of your assistant secretary, is the person in the company that got the subcontract 11 days after this original company, Safe America, was founded. That's the record. So I have a question. Did Mr. Lewandowski receive any compensation directly or indirectly from Safe America or from the strategy group?
Senator, I don't have any information to that. I can't speak to that.
Would that be of interest
I don't think so.
for you to find out?
Sure.
Well, so will you ask Mr. Lewandowski, did he get any compensation directly or indirectly from these contracts?
Are you asking me to go ask him?
Yes, I am. Ask your special government advisor,
I can do that.
and you'll get back to us.
Get back to you. Yes,
All
absolutely.
right, we will want that. Now, you said at a cabinet meeting on March 24th that we are going to eliminate FEMA. Is that correct?
Eliminate FEMA as we know it, that it was no longer going to be a politicized disaster response
Madam-
agency, that President Trump was
Madam
going to ensure that
Secretary,
it was there to respond.
We need FEMA reform. The people of Vermont have suffered. We had floods in July 14th of 2023, 2024, and 2025. We need local control. We can't have a FEMA that is abolished or a secretary that promotes abolishing FEMA and not providing services that our citizens in all our states need when they're on the receiving end of a monster storm.
FEMA has been responding twice as fast than it ever has in history and empowering states and local emergency management directors to respond. And we come in and support them as well.
I saw the graph that Senator Tillis held up, and that's not what that graph says. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Okay. Three things before I call on Senator. Did you have a couple minutes you wanted to address something, or should I go on?
No, that's fine. I just would like to say that FEMA has gone forward and done 60 different emergency disasters, 41 major disasters, and that they have overwhelmingly responded and taken care of American citizens and removed the politicization that Joe Biden put into the agency. I'm proud of the work that FEMA has done. They've deployed dollars immediately and responded and partnered with other agencies to save people such as the Coast Guard and CBP in the flooding situations in Texas, and have continued to make sure that while local emergencies are executed at the local level, that they're managed by states, and that the federal government is there to support.
The Department of Homeland Security shutdown is now in its third week. It should come as no surprise that the Democrats opposed enforcement of our immigration laws. They did so for 4 years when they controlled the White House. Just last week, they refused to stand and support President Trump's call to protect American people during the State of the Union. But Homeland Security includes other critical entities like Secret Service, FEMA, TSA, Coast Guard that Democrats refused to fund. and whose workers aren't getting paid. The primary responsibility of the federal government is to keep the American people safe, so it's critical that Democrats fund DHS in the end of this reckless political exercise. The hearing record will remain open for 1 week. Members should get their questions to the secretary at the end of the week. My expectation is that the department will answer the committee's questions for the record. Senator Noem, Secretary Noem, Senator Cruz is going to adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
I'm going to go to another meeting. I thank you for your appearance today. Senator Cruz.
You.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary.
Yes, hi, Senator.
Congratulations on a grueling morning. I am the last thing between you and returning to work. Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for accepting the charge to protect this nation at a time of enormous peril and at a time, sadly, of far too much politicization and demonization of the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security was founded in the wake of the September 11th attacks, after nearly 3,000 Americans were murdered on our soil. It exists because we learned at terrible cost that vigilance is not optional. And the success of vigilance is quiet and often ignored. It is measured not in headlines, but the absence of them. The flights that land safely. The plots that never materialize. The threats that are intercepted before they reach our communities. Like sentinels standing watch at the walls of a city, the men and women of DHS guard the homeland day and night with extraordinary dedication and professionalism. And yet, over the past 18 days, Democrats have shut down the very department tasked with that mission, weaponizing the budget process to advance political disagreements. The same voices that once called to abolish ICE and defund the police have now left the sentinels unsupported and the watchtower dark. That is what the Democrat shutdown has done. Let's get to the truth. For the American people, this oversight hearing is about three things: where we were, what has been accomplished, and where we need to go next. Let's start with where we were. Secretary Noem, when you walked into DHS, what was the state of operational control at the southern border that you inherited?
There was no operational control. In fact, our Border Patrol agents and federal officers were being forced to help facilitate the invasion of dangerous criminals and aliens into our country.
Were daily encounters at or near historic highs?
Yes, they absolutely were at historic highs. That's the worst we've ever seen.
Between 2021 and 2024, the Biden administration released more than 13 million illegal aliens into this country after encountering them at the southern border. Is that correct?
Yes, that's that we know of. There could be millions more.
DHS data reflects during this period of mass releases into the interior, crimes committed by foreign nationals included at least 15,000 homicides and more than 20,000 sexual assaults. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I will say, these numbers are not abstractions. And I will say to all the angel families here, thank you for being here. Thank you for holding the photographs of your children, of your spouses, of your parents, of your brothers and sisters who should be with you. Names like Jocelyn Nungary and Laken Riley and Rachel Marin. Jocelyn, just 12 years old, was killed just miles from my house. Raped and murdered by two Venezuelan gang members that the United States government had apprehended and then released. And when they were released, they traveled to Houston, Texas, and they kidnapped a 12-year-old girl and raped and murdered her. In your time at DHS, has anyone in the leadership of the previous administration explained why the hell they let so many violent criminals free in our country?
No, they haven't. In fact, under the Biden administration and Mayorkas' leadership, they closed the victim's office at ICE, the Voices office that would help families that suffered a loss like Jocelyn's family and Lakin's family and Rachel's family. They had no resources, no way to track court appearances or to get counseling services, no support whatsoever. They purposely closed that down to punish these families even more.
So it wasn't just murderers and rapists that were being released in this country. The open border under the Democrats also became a pipeline for poison, killing our children. Secretary Noem, when you took office, is it correct that fentanyl was the leading cause of death for Americans between the age of 18 and 45?
That's correct.
Was the volume of fentanyl crossing our southern border at or near record levels?
Yes, it was.
And would you agree that when operational control collapses, cartels exploit that chaos?
They exploit it and they become enriched from it.
So now let's talk about what has been accomplished under President Trump's leadership. Under President Trump's leadership, we have had 0 illegal aliens released for 10 straight months. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In President Trump's first year back in office, how many illegal aliens have left the United States?
2.5 million have left voluntarily, and we have arrested, detained, and removed close to 700,000 now.
And how many known or suspected terrorists have been removed?
We have over 1,500 now today that have been apprehended and are being brought to justice.
In the first 100 days of the second Trump administration, is it correct that daily border encounters decreased by approximately 93%?
Yes, that is correct.
That encounters with gotaways, those who are escaping apprehension, decreased by roughly 95%.
That is correct.
And that illegal crossings overall fell by 99%.
That is correct.
And how much in illegal drugs are we interdicting at the border?
Well, fentanyl has dropped by 56% in just the last year, from 2024, where there was historic highs coming into the country, to historic lows in 2025 under President Trump's leadership.
And I would note that securing the border, targeting narco-terrorists, arresting and prosecuting Nicolas Maduro, all of those have had extraordinary effects. Is it correct that nationwide the murder rate has decreased 20% in the last year?
It has. It's at a historic low. In the last 125 years, we are at the lowest murder rate that our country's experienced.
Is it also correct that the number of drug overdose deaths in America has decreased 20% in the last year?
That is correct.
That literally means there are thousands of Americans who are alive today, who would not be alive if President Trump had not been reelected and if Republicans had not won control of Congress. Would you agree with that?
That is correct.
It means, tragically, that had the Democrats' open border policies continued, there would be more and more rows of people, Americans holding pictures of loved ones. We don't know who the loved ones are that weren't murdered this last year. We don't know who the loved ones were that didn't die of fentanyl overdoses, but we know that many more Americans are dead. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I will tell you a particularly infuriating illustration. Several weeks ago, the Houston Chronicle had a front page story, top of the fold. Banner headline, murder rate in Houston, Texas decreases by 18%. And Heidi, my wife, handed me the article because she knew it would piss me off. And she was correct. The article says the murder rate has dropped 18%. Experts are baffled as to why, and we can think of no reason whatsoever why the murder rate would drop. It clearly is not connected to anything that is happening anywhere. Madam Secretary, is it a reasonable inference that arresting and deporting murderers and gangbangers results in fewer murders?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And that arresting and deporting drug traffickers and stopping narco traffickers results in fewer people dying of drug overdoses?
That's correct.
It is amazing that that cause and effect is so difficult to figure out. Now, where do we go from here? As we sit here today, are there Border Patrol agents right now working with zero pay?
The agents and law enforcement officers are being paid. Some of the support staff and administrative staff is not able to.
Is the shutdown making it harder to sustain the enforcement gains that the American people demanded?
Yes, it is.
Does the funding instability affect morale within the department?
It does. Overwhelmingly, people at the Department of Homeland Security love their jobs and come to work recognizing how important their mission is. But they become discouraged when they can't pay their bills and can't feed their families, and especially when they have multiple shutdowns, which tells them that members of this body and the Democratic Party don't think they're important enough to get paid for the work that they do.
Now, we are right now engaged in military conflict with Iran. At this time, do you assess that there is a real danger and risk of terrorism in the United States?
Every day there's a real danger and risk of it, but it is elevated at this time with the conflicts that we see going on overseas.
Well, and tragically, this past Sunday in Austin, Texas, we saw that unfold. A mass murderer who arrived wearing a sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah," who was wearing a T-shirt with the flag of Iran, who had a Quran in his car, opened fire on a bar in Austin, Texas. Among those murdered, Ryder Harrington, age 19, Sabbath Hashan, age 21, and Jorge Peterson, age 30. Secretary Noem, is it correct that this mass murderer was born in Senegal?
He was, and then he was naturalized during the Obama administration.
He was naturalized in 2013. Would you agree that weaknesses in screening, vetting, or oversight, even in years in the past, can reverberate years later with deadly consequences?
Yes, absolutely. That's why in green cards and naturalization purposes, the last several years under the Biden administration, we are re-vetting individuals from countries of concern.
And despite the risk of more terrorism, of more Americans being murdered by radical Islamic terrorists, Democrats are nonetheless voting over and over again to cut off funding to the Department of Homeland Security.
And encouraging resistance against our law enforcement, encouraging violent rioters to continue to resist us and to protest against ICE and the operations that we do to uphold the law.
You know, it wasn't long ago that common sense prevailed, that there was bipartisan agreement, that we agreed we all support the police, we all support law enforcement, we all want to see criminals in jail, we believe murderers should be in jail, we believe rapists should be in jail, we believe child molesters should be in jail, we believe gangbangers should be in jail. Today, tragically, the Democrat Party has decided they are the party of illegal immigrants, they are the party of murderers and rapists and child molesters and gangbangers. And the men and women who are on the wall, the men and women who are defending